Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. Last year, my sister Sarah and I moved into a pet-friendly apartment complex in the suburbs. We had two dogs, Luna, a Bichon Shih Tzu mix, and Max, an energetic terrier poodle. The community dog park right next to our building was a major selling point. Our building was full of dog owners with pets of all sizes. We got lucky with a first-floor corner apartment that gave us plenty of privacy and a small yard area. Max, being part terrier, could be vocal when left alone. When we were home, we used clicker training to manage his barking. He'd stop and come running whenever we clicked. Due to our work schedules, I was home mornings while Sarah covered afternoons, leaving only a few hours when no one was home. About 4 weeks after moving in, we found a note taped to our door. It read, "To whoever owns those mutts, I don't care how new you are here, but your dog's constant barking is disrupting my sleep before my important job. Find a way to silence them immediately." Sarah took the note to the leasing office, concerned about how to handle it. The manager, Mrs. Chen, just sighed and said, "Don't worry too much. Mr. Peterson has done this to every dog owner in the building, but maybe try to figure out what triggers the barking when you're gone." We investigated and discovered Max was barking at neighborhood kids who played near the electrical box outside our window. We blocked that area off when we were out and started playing classical music to keep him calm. A week later, there was an aggressive knock at our door. Standing there was a tall man in an expensive suit, face already red with anger. "I'm Mr. Peterson from Unit 312, he barked. "Your dogs have been keeping me up every single day with non-stop barking." "That's not possible," I replied calmly. "We've both been home today and Max has barely made a sound." He jabbed his finger toward me. "Don't tell me what I heard. If you can't control those mutts, I'll have animal control take them away. I've done it before and I'll do it again. Then I'll have you evicted for lease violations. I've got money and influence here. This complex needs tenants like me. Silence those dogs or face the consequences." After he stormed off, our neighbor Lisa told us he'd made similar threats to 3 other dog owners that same day. Sarah finally agreed to report him to management. Mrs. Chen assured us, "Just document any further incidents." We actually offered him a unit away from the dog owners, but he refused, saying, "The dogs are the problem, not me." The threats affected Sarah deeply. She bought a citrus spray bark collar for Max, which I hated, but it helped ease her anxiety about going outside. We only used it when neither of us was home. Things were quiet for a month until animal control showed up at our door. The officer said, "We received an anonymous report about neglected dogs barking due to abuse." Sarah invited her in, hands shaking. "Please, let me show you everything. Our dogs are well cared for." The officer, Miss Rodriguez, watched Luna and Max playing happily. "This is clearly another false report," she said. "We've gotten several similar anonymous calls about other apartments here. If you receive any more threats, try to document them." Sarah became increasingly paranoid about leaving the house, terrified of losing our dogs. Usually I'm pretty laid back, but seeing my sister so distressed made me angry. I researched local laws and lease terms, then waited for Sarah to visit our aunt before implementing my plan. One Saturday afternoon, I sat outside playing loud dog barking videos on my speaker. Soon enough, Mr. Peterson came charging across the courtyard. I started recording on my phone as he approached. "Can I help you?" I asked sweetly. "You're dead meat now," he snarled. "I warned you what would happen if you didn't shut those damn dogs up. I'm getting them seized and you'll be homeless when I'm done. Hope they put those mutts down and you end up on the street." "So," I said carefully, "you're saying I'm not allowed to have any noise, including dog barking between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m.? "Exactly, you little... And you're making these threats while standing on my porch at 2 p.m.? Won't be your porch much longer." "That sounds like a serious threat against my family and pets." "You're damn right it is." I stopped recording and smiled. "Please, have a seat. I have some documents to share with you." I showed him the county noise ordinance allowing dog barking between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., the lease clause about threats being grounds for eviction after one warning, and finally the zero-tolerance policy for threatening residents on their property. His face went pale as he realized what he'd done. Without another word, I went inside and sent the recording to the leasing office. A week later, Sarah came home with news from Mrs. Chen. Mr. Peterson was being evicted. Other dog owners had come forward about his harassment too. We threw away the spray collar, and while Sarah still gets anxious sometimes, she's getting help. I don't regret standing up to him, just wish it hadn't been necessary. The next one is an entitled people's story. I inherited my grandfather's 80-acre farm in rural Pennsylvania back in 2019. It's been in our family for 3 generations, and I grew up helping him tend the crops every summer. When he passed, I left my office job in Pittsburgh to take over the farm full-time. It's not the easiest life, but it's honest work, and I love every minute of it. The farm sits between a state highway and a newer housing development called Lakeview Estates, though there isn't actually a lake anywhere nearby. The development was built around 2015 and has about 150 homes, all controlled by one of those notorious homeowners associations that think they own everything in a 5-mile radius. My problem started in March 2023 when I discovered construction equipment on my property one morning. A crew was actually grading and laying gravel for what looked like a road cutting right through my southwest field, about 400 yards of my land connecting the housing development to the highway. I immediately went out there and confronted the crew foreman. "What the hell do you think you're doing on my property?" I demanded. He pulled out some papers and said, "We have authorization from Lakeview Estates Homeowners Association to build an access road here. It'll give residents a shorter route to the highway." "I never authorized anyone to build anything on my land," I told him. "This is private property. You need to stop work immediately and get your equipment off my farm." "Look, buddy, I just do what I'm told," he shrugged. "Take it up with the Homeowners Association. We got paid to do a job." I called the police to report the trespassing, but by the time they arrived, the crew had already packed up and left. The responding officer took my statement and photos of the partially completed road. That afternoon, I got a call from Karen Thompson, the Homeowners Association president. I'd never met her, but her reputation preceded her as someone who thought rules didn't apply to her. "Mr. Mitchell, I understand you caused some trouble with our road crew this morning," she said in that condescending tone Homeowners Association presidents seem to perfect. "You mean when I stopped them from illegally building on my private property?" "Yes, I did. There's no need to be difficult about this. The road will benefit everyone. Your property value will increase with better access. The board voted and approved this project months ago." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Your board has zero authority over my farm. I never agreed to this, and you never even contacted me. What you're doing is illegal." "Actually," she replied smugly, "we have easement rights through adverse possession. That path has been used by residents as a walking trail for years. That's complete nonsense, and you know it. No one has permission to cross my property. Remove your equipment and materials by tomorrow, or I'll have everything towed at your expense." She actually laughed. "Good luck with that. This road is happening whether you like it or not. If you interfere, we'll sue you for obstructing necessary infrastructure improvements." I hung up and immediately called my lawyer, Jim Patterson. He's handled my family's legal matters for decades and knows property law inside and out. After explaining the situation, he was as outraged as I was. "They don't have a leg to stand on," Jim assured me. "There's no easement, no adverse possession claim, nothing. They're completely out of line. I'll draft a cease and desist letter right away." The next morning, I used my tractor to drag several large concrete barriers across both ends of their attempted road. I also posted no trespassing signs and set up security cameras. Within hours, Karen was back on my phone. "Remove those barriers immediately," she screeched. "You're blocking emergency access." "There is no emergency access because there is no legal road," I replied calmly. "You have 24 hours to remove your gravel and equipment before it's considered abandoned property." "You'll be hearing from our attorneys," she threatened before hanging up. True to her word, 3 days later, I was served with a lawsuit. The Homeowners Association was suing me for $250,000 in damages, claiming I was maliciously interfering with critical infrastructure and endangering resident safety by blocking their road. They also filed for an emergency injunction to force me to remove the barriers. Jim reviewed their filing and actually started laughing. "This is the most absurd lawsuit I've seen in years. They have zero supporting documentation, no surveys, no easements, nothing. They literally just decided to build a road on your land and are now suing because you won't let them." We filed a strong response and counterclaim for trespassing, property damage, and legal fees. The initial hearing was set for 2 weeks later. In that time, I documented everything meticulously. I took photos and videos showing the extent of damage to my field. I gathered satellite images proving there was never any trail or path there before. I even had a licensed surveyor formally document my property boundaries. Meanwhile, the Homeowners Association tried to wage a PR war against me. They sent letters to all residents painting me as an unreasonable farmer, selfishly blocking community improvements. Some residents even started protesting at the edge of my property with signs calling me a NIMBY and anti-progress. The day of the hearing finally arrived. Karen showed up with two attorneys who looked fresh out of law school. When the judge asked them to present evidence of their easement claims, they fumbled through a folder of homeowners association meeting minutes showing they had voted to approve the road. Your Honor, one attorney argued, the homeowners association board followed all proper procedures in approving this infrastructure project. Did these procedures include getting permission from the actual property owner? The judge asked dryly. We determined that wasn't necessary given the historical use of the property. Jim then presented our evidence, property deeds, surveys, photos of the damage, and documentation showing the homeowners association had never even attempted to contact me before starting construction. The judge was not amused. He denied their emergency injunction and set a trial date for the full case, but he also issued a stern warning to the homeowners association's attorneys about filing frivolous claims. That's when Karen apparently decided to take matters into her own hands. The next morning, I found their construction crew back on my property, attempting to remove the barriers with a front-end loader. I immediately called the police and started recording video. When officers arrived, Karen was there screaming about illegal obstacles, while the crew tried to pretend they weren't doing anything wrong. This time, the police arrested both Karen and the crew foreman for criminal trespassing and attempted destruction of property. The look on her face as they put her in handcuffs was priceless, but it wasn't over yet. The Homeowners Association doubled down, hiring more experienced attorneys and dragging out the legal process. They filed motion after motion, trying to delay the trial while running up my legal costs. They even tried claiming that my farm was blighting their community and hurting property values. Their new lawyers filed paperwork attempting to have the county declare my land as subject to eminent domain for public benefit. It was completely absurd. Through all this, I kept farming as best I could, though the damaged field was now basically unusable. I estimated I lost about $40,000 in crop revenue that season, but I wasn't about to back down. The trial finally began in January 2024. It lasted 5 days, during which their attorneys threw everything they could think of at the wall. They brought in expert witnesses who claimed the road was essential for emergency services, despite the development already having 2 other access roads. They had real estate agents testify about property values. They even tried arguing that my grandfather had verbally agreed to a future road years ago. With no evidence, of course. Jim methodically destroyed each of their arguments. He presented testimony from the county emergency services director confirming the development had adequate access. He showed how their claimed emergency response issues were completely fabricated. He brought in agricultural experts to document the damage to my field. But the turning point came when Jim called Karen to testify. Under oath, she completely unraveled. "Did you ever attempt to contact Mr. Mitchell before beginning construction?" Jim asked. "We didn't need to," she snapped. "The Homeowners Association Board has authority over all local development." "So that's a no. Did you obtain any permits from the county?" "Those wouldn't have been necessary for a private road." "Are you aware that construction permits are required for any new road, public or private?" "Well, the board determined." "Yes or no, Miss Thompson? Did you obtain permits?" "No," she finally admitted. "And isn't it true that you directed the construction crew to continue work even after being informed you were trespassing?" "We had every right to be there." "That's not what I asked. Did you instruct them to continue after Mr. Mitchell told you to stop?" "Yes, because he was being unreasonable." "No further questions, Your Honor." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning their verdict. They found completely in my favor on all counts. The Homeowners Association was ordered to pay $175,000 in damages for crop loss and property damage, remove all construction materials, and restore my field to its original condition, cover all my legal fees, around $85,000, pay $50,000 in punitive damages for their willful misconduct. The judge also issued a permanent injunction barring them from any future attempts to build on my property. But the best part came during the damages hearing. Their lawyers tried arguing the Homeowners Association couldn't afford such a large judgment. That's when Jim revealed his ace. He discovered their board had never properly authorized the construction expenditure or the lawsuit. According to their own bylaws, projects over $50,000 required a resident vote, which never happened. This meant Karen and the other board members were personally liable for all costs and damages. The judge agreed and ordered them to pay from their own pockets if the Homeowners Association couldn't cover it. The aftermath was spectacular. Within a week, the Homeowners Association held an emergency meeting where the entire board was voted out. Karen and 3 other members were forced to sell their homes to pay the judgment. The new board president actually came to apologize to me personally. "I'm so sorry for what they put you through," she said. "Most of us never supported this crazy scheme. They just ran the Homeowners Association like their personal kingdom." The road was removed and my field restored by spring planting season. I used part of the settlement money to install better fencing and a security system. The rest went into upgrading my irrigation system, something I'd been wanting to do for years. These days, things are peaceful again. The new Homeowners Association board keeps to themselves, and I keep to my farming. Sometimes I see Karen's old house when I'm working that field. The new owners are lovely people who actually wave when they see me on my tractor. The whole experience taught me that standing up to bullies, even if they come wearing suits and carrying Homeowners Association bylaws, is always worth it. My grandfather used to say good fences make good neighbors. I'd add that good lawyers and security cameras don't hurt either. Last month, I put up a new sign where their illegal road used to be. It reads, "Private farm, no trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted. Just ask Karen." Maybe a bit petty, but after what they put me through, I earned it. Update, 1 year later. The Homeowners Association's revenge attempt backfired spectacularly. It's been just over a year since my legal victory against the Lakeview Estates Homeowners Association, and I thought I'd share what's happened since then. While most things have settled down, there were some interesting developments that really put the final nails in Karen's coffin, so to speak. About 3 months after the court case, Karen and her remaining allies tried one last desperate move. They filed complaints with the EPA and Department of Agriculture claiming I was using illegal pesticides that were damaging their properties. They even hired a shady environmental testing company that produced reports showing dangerous chemical levels in soil samples supposedly taken from the border of my farm. I found out about this when state inspectors showed up unannounced one morning, but I wasn't worried. I've always kept detailed records of everything I use on my farm, including all chemical applications. I'm certified organic on most of my fields, and I follow strict protocols. "We need to take soil samples and review your application records," the lead inspector told me. "Happy to help," I replied. "I can show you my complete logs going back 5 years, plus all my organic certification documentation." The inspectors were thorough, spending 2 full days testing soil samples and reviewing my records. They quickly realized something wasn't adding up with the Homeowners Association's claims. My lawyer, Jim, got involved again, and we requested the lab reports from the testing company Karen had used. It didn't take much digging to discover they weren't even properly certified for agricultural testing. When pressed, the company admitted they had been paid to fabricate results showing contamination. Jim immediately filed new charges against Karen and her conspirators for filing false reports and attempting to defame my business. The EPA and Agriculture Department also opened investigations into the fake testing company. The local newspaper got wind of the story and ran a front-page article exposing the whole scheme. That's when things really got interesting. Several former Lakeview Estates board members, worried about their own liability, came forward with evidence that Karen had orchestrated the entire thing. They provided emails showing Karen had approached multiple testing companies until she found one willing to fake results. She had also created a secret slush fund using Homeowners Association dues to pay for her various schemes against me. The new Homeowners Association board was furious. They held another emergency meeting and voted to file their own lawsuit against Karen and the other conspirators to recover misused funds. The forensic accounting revealed they had embezzled over $200,000 from the Homeowners Association over 3 years. Karen and her husband tried to quietly sell their new house and leave town, but the police caught up with them first. They were arrested on multiple felony charges, including fraud, embezzlement, and filing false reports. The criminal case wrapped up last month. Karen took a plea deal, 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution to the Homeowners Association. 3 of her conspirators got similar deals with shorter sentences. The testing company lost their business license and their owner faces separate criminal charges. But the best part? The new Homeowners Association board approached me with an interesting proposal. They wanted to buy 5 acres of my land along their border, properly this time, to create a community garden and farm education center. "We thought it would be a good way to make amends," the new president explained. "Plus, many residents are interested in learning about organic farming. Would you consider being an advisor?" I thought about it and decided it was actually a good idea. We negotiated a fair price, did all the proper surveys and permits, and closed the deal legally. This spring, we're breaking ground on the garden plots. I'm helping design the layout and will teach some basic farming classes. The whole experience has turned into something positive for the community. Several families from the development have kids who now help out on my farm during summer break. I'm teaching them about sustainable agriculture and they're learning where their food really comes from. Last week, I took down my snarky Ask Karen sign. I don't need it anymore. Her own actions did far more damage to her reputation than any sign could. The new neighbors are good people who respect boundaries and actually care about doing things the right way. The land where they tried to build their illegal road is producing record crops this year. I used some of the settlement money to install a state-of-the-art irrigation system, and it's paying off better than I expected. Jim still jokes that he should thank Karen. The case was one of his most satisfying victories. He even has a framed copy of the judgment hanging in his office. You know what the real lesson was? He told me recently. Never underestimate a farmer who knows his rights and keeps good records. My grandfather would be proud to see how things turned out. The farm is thriving. We've got good neighbors now, and justice was served. Karen learned the hard way that you can't just bulldoze over people's rights, and her kingdom crumbled around her. The new community garden will break ground next month. We're planning a big celebration with local food, live music, and farming demonstrations. Several local schools have already signed up to bring students for field trips. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing people a better way to do things. The farm has become a bridge between the rural and suburban communities, bringing people together instead of dividing them. As for me, I'm just happy to be back to farming in peace. The security cameras are still up, but these days they mostly capture wildlife and beautiful sunsets rather than trespassing construction crews. I've started mentoring a young couple who want to start their own organic farm. Teaching them reminds me of working alongside my grandfather, learning the rhythms of the land and the satisfaction of growing food. Karen's old house sold again recently. The new owners are a nice family who bring me fresh-baked bread sometimes. Their kids love helping collect eggs from my chickens. It's amazing how much can change in just 1 year when you stand your ground and let justice take its course. That's my update. The farm is doing great. The community is healing, and the bad actors got what they deserved. Sometimes happy endings do happen. They just take some work, good documentation, and a willingness to fight for what's right. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.